Before we dive into this powerful and emotional journey of redemption and unexpected light, make sure to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and tap the bell so you never miss a story that deserves to be told. What you're about to hear is not just another Western, it's a story of fire, scars, and the quiet love that reshaped a broken soul. In the heart of a ruthless desert town, where men carried more bullets than mercy, a lone gunslinger walked with a past too heavy to bear. His name was Boone Riker, a man whose face bore a jagged scar from a duel gone wrong, and whose heart carried even deeper wounds. Boone wasn't known for kindness. He was feared, because that's how he survived. But even men carved from steel find themselves shaken when fate drops a child in their arms. Silver Hollow wasn't a place for miracles. It was a whiskey-soaked mining town where gunfights happened as often as rain didn't. Boone had come for one thing: money. He took jobs others wouldn't. Escorting convoys, guarding gamblers, collecting debts. No friends. No roots. Just the cold steel on his hip and a bottle in his coat. He didn't talk unless paid. Didn't flinch unless fired upon. People said his soul was burned to ash. And maybe it was. But one night, as he walked past the Golden Barrel Saloon, the world turned red. Flames shot through the windows. Screams echoed into the street. Something exploded inside. The crowd ran. But Boone walked straight into the fire. He kicked through the doors with nothing but a soaked bandana over his mouth. Heat clawed at his skin. Smoke turned the air into tar. Tables burned. Whiskey bottles exploded like grenades. He had no plan, just instinct. And instinct led him to the stairs. On the second floor, behind a cracked door, he heard a whimper. He shoved it open. Inside was a little girl, no more than 8, curled in a ball, soot covering her face, her eyes wide but unfocused. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She just whispered, "I can't see." Boone froze. Not from fear, but from recognition. Because in her broken voice, he heard something he hadn't felt in years: innocence. He didn't hesitate. He wrapped her in his duster, shielded her with his body, and carried her down through the flames. The saloon cracked and groaned like a dying beast. Wood splintered. Ceilings collapsed. But Boone didn't stop. He crashed through the front window just before the upper floor caved in behind him. He hit the dirt hard, girl still in his arms. People stared. They whispered. They saw a monster save a child. And it didn't make sense. Boone didn't wait for thanks. He stood, brushed the glass off, and walked away with the girl cradled against his chest. The fire raged behind him. But the real spark, it had just been lit. Her name was Cora. Blind since birth. No family. Her mother had worked at the saloon until the wrong man got drunk and the wrong card was drawn. No one came for her. No one claimed her. No one wanted her. Except Boone. And even he didn't know why. He brought her to his shack on the edge of town, a lonely little house with cracked windows and creaking boards. He fed her what he had. Laid her on the bed. Sat in silence. Boone had fought wars. Killed men. Lived through ambushes and bounty hunts. But nothing made him feel more helpless than a child asking where the stars went when the night came. Cora wasn't afraid of him. She asked about his scar. Asked why he never smiled. Why he didn't play music or read stories like the other men her mama knew. Boone never had answers. He just grunted or sat there, staring into the desert. But Cora didn't mind. She talked anyway. About the sounds she heard. The way the wind danced. The way his boots scraped when he walked. She didn't see his silence as coldness. She saw it as space. Space to exist. And little by little, Boone stopped feeling like a stranger in his own home. She followed him outside one morning. Said she wanted to hear the horses. Boone didn't argue. He saddled up his old mare and placed her in front of him. She laughed the first time they rode. It wasn't a polite giggle, it was a full, open-hearted joy that echoed across the canyon. Boone didn't laugh, but something cracked inside him. A dry, unfamiliar warmth started to spread in the space where bitterness used to live. And for once, the world didn't feel like a war zone. It felt almost peaceful. Boone started changing. He didn't notice it, but others did. He stopped picking fights. He started tipping the barber. He patched the holes in his roof. He even bought a book about constellations. Cora said she wanted to see the stars through words. So he read to her, awkwardly, slowly, every night. She'd smile and say, "That one sounds like a dragon." Or, "That one's cold and blue, like your voice." Boone didn't mind. Her world was built on sounds and feelings, and somehow, it felt more real than the violent dust he'd known for years. Trouble came back, as it always does. One night, 2 bounty hunters showed up at his door. Men from his past. One missing an ear. The other dragging a badge in the mud. "We ain't here for the girl," they said. "We're here for the blood you owe." Boone stepped outside, closed the door gently behind him, and faced them like a man with nothing left to lose, but something left to protect. The gunfight was over in under 10 seconds. 2 shots, 2 bodies, and one little girl pressing her ear to the door, whispering, "Are they gone?" He didn't lie. "They're gone," he said. "And they won't come back." But he knew better. The past never really stays buried. Cora sensed the weight in his voice. She asked if he was scared. Boone hesitated. "No," he said. "Not for me." She reached for his hand. "Then don't be. I'll show you how to see." Boone didn't understand what she meant. But the next morning, he woke up before the sun, watched her sleep peacefully, and for the first time since the war, he saw beauty in stillness. And it terrified him more than any gun ever had. Cora began teaching Boone the world as she experienced it, not through sight, but through touch, sound, rhythm, and silence. She'd press his hand against tree bark and ask, "What does it feel like?" He'd say, "Rough." She'd say, "No, it feels like the earth breathing." She'd describe wind as laughter and thunder as the sky remembering something loud. At first, Boone dismissed it as childish talk, but after a while, he started to listen. Not with his ears, but with his whole being. And in those quiet afternoons, surrounded by wildflowers and distant coyotes, Boone began to understand something he never learned with a gun in his hand. One morning, Cora asked to go to town with him. Boone hesitated. He knew how people talked. He knew the saloon fire was still fresh in their minds. But she insisted. "They need to see you," she said. "Not the man they fear. The man who saved me." Boone took a deep breath, saddled the horse, and together they rode into Silver Hollow. Eyes turned. Conversations stopped. People stared. But no one drew a gun. No one spat. Instead, they watched a scarred gunslinger hold a blind girl's hand like she was the most valuable thing in the world. And in that moment, something changed in them too. Boone started building a ramp by the front steps so Cora wouldn't trip. Then he carved her a wooden stick with grooves so she could count her steps around the house. He even tied tiny bells on the mare's saddle so she could hear where the horse was smiling. Every small act chipped away at the wall he'd built around his heart. And every night, he'd sit by the fire, reading aloud from the constellation book while she listened with her head on his arm. He didn't notice the scar on his face anymore. She never saw it. But more importantly, she never treated him like it was there. Then came the letter. From a distant judge. Official ink and a town seal. "A child cannot remain in the care of a known criminal," it read. "She must be surrendered to the orphanage in Dry Creek within 10 days. Boone read it twice. then burned it in the fire. But he knew they'd come. Men with papers. Men with guns. Not bounty hunters this time. Lawmen. The ones who thought they were doing right. Boone had 10 days to decide, run, hide, or fight. But Cora made the decision for him. She said, "Let them come. We'll show them what family looks like." They prepared together. Boone taught her how to recognize bootsteps, how to listen for the snap of leather. He cleaned his rifles, but he didn't sharpen them for war. He oiled them for defense. Not to protect himself, but to protect her home. On the 9th day, a carriage arrived. 3 men stepped out. Suits. Clean boots. No mercy in their voices. "You've had your time," one said. "The girl comes with us now." Cora stood behind Boone. Not trembling. Not crying. Just holding her walking stick like a sword. And Boone, for the first time in his life, spoke with calm fire. "She's mine," he said. "She might not be by blood or law or ink on a page, but she's mine. And I'll bury anyone who says otherwise." The men reached for their holsters. Boone stepped forward. Then something remarkable happened. Cora stepped in front of him. She faced the lawmen, though she couldn't see them, and said, "Do I look scared?" Silence. "He sees me," she continued. "Not with eyes. With his heart. If you take me, you're taking away the only man who's ever treated me like I matter." The lawmen didn't draw. They just left. And didn't return. From that day on, Boone wasn't just tolerated in Silver Hollow, he was respected. People brought food. The preacher stopped by to pray. A schoolteacher even asked if Cora wanted to learn Braille. Boone started fixing fences not just on his land, but for neighbors too. He was no longer the scarred gunslinger. He was Cora's guardian. And she was the light in a town that had forgotten how to hope. Together, they changed the rhythm of the place. Slowly, gently, like a sunrise after a long, dark storm. Cora grew taller. Her words became wiser. Boone's beard turned gray. But their bond only deepened. Every year, on the anniversary of the Saloon fire, Boone would light a small flame in a lantern and say, "This was the night I found my sight." Cora would smile and respond, "And I found my voice." They never celebrated with others. Just the two of them. A quiet moment of gratitude. Of survival. Of transformation. Boone had saved her from fire. But she had saved him from ice. Years passed. The guns stayed on the wall, untouched. Boone no longer needed them. His legend faded, and he liked it that way. Cora became a storyteller. She traveled town to town, telling children how she once lived with a man who couldn't smile, until she taught him how. Boone would wait by the porch, listening to the wind, smiling to himself. He never told her how proud he was, but she always knew. Sometimes, love doesn't speak loud. It just shows up. Every day. Without fail. And then, one quiet morning, Boone didn't rise. Cora found him in his chair, eyes closed, a peaceful expression softening his scar. In his lap was the constellation book, worn, torn, and bookmarked to the chapter on Orion. No note. No goodbye. Just the man he became in the place that saved him. Cora buried him beneath the tree they used to sit under, facing the sunrise. On the stone she carved with her own hands, "He couldn't see the stars until he saw through me." And the town remembered not the gunslinger, but the man who learned to see. Cora didn't leave the ranch. Not right away. She stayed for weeks, walking the land barefoot, listening to the wind the way Boone taught her. She said the earth still whispered his name in the grass. Said the porch creaked differently now, like it missed him sitting there. Neighbors came by to offer their condolences, But Cora didn't need words. What she needed was silence, the kind they used to share every sunset. She sat in his chair, held the constellation book to her chest, and for the first time in a long while, she wept. Not from pain, but from gratitude. Eventually, she began planting wildflowers around his grave. Something alive should grow where he rests, she said. He gave me life. And slowly, the once dry soil bloomed with color. Reds, purples, yellows. It became a place of peace, not grief. Children from the town would come just to sit near it. They said it felt safe there, like someone was still watching over them. And maybe someone was. After all, legends don't disappear, they root themselves in the land. And Boone Riker had finally found his home. Cora took up Boone's rifle one day. Not to fight, just to feel its weight. She cleaned it, oiled it, then hung it above the fireplace. You don't need it anymore, she said aloud, smiling faintly. You fought your last war. She turned the place into a home for children without family. Not an orphanage, a sanctuary. She called it the Lantern House, in honor of the flame Boone lit every year. And kids who'd lost everything now found a place where they could be seen, truly seen, for who they were inside. She kept telling stories. Sitting under the stars, she'd speak of a man with a face carved by pain, but a heart rebuilt by love. Of a burning saloon. Of a blind girl who couldn't see with her eyes, but could see the truth in people. And the children would listen, wide-eyed, hanging onto every word. Was he real? They'd ask. And Cora would only smile and say, Look around. Do you feel safe? Then yes, he was real. And that's how Boone lived on, not in books, not in songs, but in every child who walked through her door. One winter, a traveling reporter heard the tale. He wrote an article called The Gunslinger Who Found His Sight. It spread fast. People from across the territory came to visit the Lantern House. They didn't ask for proof. They didn't need to. Some stories are too true to be measured. A governor even offered Cora money to expand. But she declined. I don't want to make this bigger, she said. I want to keep it real. Because it was never about the legend, it was about the man behind it. The one who gave without asking for anything in return. Every year, on the night of the saloon fire, Cora lit the lantern Boone once held. She placed it on the fence post facing the open plains. And without fail, a gust of warm wind would pass through the yard, as if carried by a rider we couldn't see. The children would gather around and Cora would say, He's checking in, making sure we're still seeing with our hearts. And each time, someone new would smile for the first time. That was Boone's real legacy, not gunfire, not scars, but light. One evening, long after most of the children were asleep, Cora stood at the edge of the porch. The sky was clear. Stars glittered like broken glass scattered across velvet. She held the constellation book in her hands, the pages worn from decades of love. Then, slowly, she opened to Orion and began to read aloud. Not for herself. Not for the kids. But for Boone. Her voice trembled, but her heart didn't. You said you couldn't see the stars, she whispered. But you became one, anyway. And the sky, as if in answer, shined just a little brighter. Old age came slowly. Her hair turned silver. Her hands softened. But her memory stayed sharp. And so did her purpose. She trained others to care for the Lantern House. Not as workers, but as family. And before she left the world, she made one last request. When I go, don't bury me far from him. Let me face the same sunrise he did. And when that day came, they honored her wish. Beneath the same tree, under the same sky, they placed her beside Boone. Two souls who found each other in fire, and now rested in peace. The stone between them simply read, She taught him to see. He taught her to be seen. No dates. No last names. Just the truth. And for years, people continued to visit, to hear the story, to sit in silence. Some brought flowers, others brought questions, but everyone left with something. A little more hope, a little more understanding, and maybe a little more courage to love through the scars. Because that's what Boone and Cora proved, that even the most broken can become the most whole, if seen by the right eyes. And so, if you're listening to this now, know that stories like this aren't just legends from the past. They're reminders of what we're all capable of, healing, choosing light, and becoming more than what the world expects. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances, and leave a comment about what part hit your heart the hardest. Until next time, remember, sometimes the people who see the least understand the most. And sometimes, a single act of courage can echo for generations.